Ben Tennyson is one of the most powerful characters in Western animation, and if you've been following Battledome for any amount of time, I'm sure you know this. We spent the last couple years covering the feats of pretty much every single relevant Ben 10 character on our TikTok and obviously this channel, at least when it comes to the Prime timeline. You guys have actually seen this effort on this channel where we rank a good portion of the characters from weakest to strongest. But now I'd like to take this video to go through all of the best feats that Ben himself has performed with his strongest aliens, using this as a sort of archive for what Ben is capable of. Now if you like Ben 10 content or power scaling content in general, leave us a like and a sub, and don't forget to follow our TikTok where we post regularly. Now by the end of Omniverse, Ben undoubtedly has access to Master Control, meaning that he lacks the time limit seen in previous series, and therefore is able to shift to any alien at will. As you could imagine, this makes Ben a formidable fighter with strategies that can be hard to counter for most opponents, but if you watch through Ben 10, hearing the word strategy spoken in the same breath as the titular hero might feel like a jump scare. I mean, obviously the nature of a long-running animated show with dozens of writers over the course of 4 separate series means that we're going to run into some inconsistencies. And while this is definitely true for feats, it's even truer for the temperament and personality of our main character. Watching Ben learn the same lesson over and over again can get frustrating, and means that his maturity is on something of a rising and falling slope throughout. Sometimes we get a level-headed strategic genius with unmatched leadership and combat creativity, and other times...
Omnitrix. And Humongous.
Sometimes Ben can be portrayed as a selfish, immature brat with little in the way of intelligent or combat-savvy decision-making, but for this video, let's just assume that Ben is the battle-hardened hero of the universe that we know he can be, and sometimes see him as. So how strong is Ben Tennyson? Now before we start, there are some ground rules for how we interpret feats. For the most part, we won't be using creator statements from Duncan Rouleau's Twitter, Dwayne McDuffie's blog, or Derek J. Wyatt's Ask FM. We want to focus on feats performed in the show itself, and it's best said by Dwayne himself, the canon is the show and not what the creators say. That being said, we will defer to these statements to clarify things about feats that do actually occur in the series, or something like the size of celestial bodies not explained in the series. So with that out of the way, I'd like to start with Ben's speed, as it does tend to be a major point of contention when discussing Ben in versus battles. And in doing this, we're going to immediately use an outside statement by Duncan Rouleau. Now before we start firing off skull emojis, this is just to express the Omnitrix's transformation speed, which has already been stated in the show as being instant, and its processing power. This point is basically being expressed to counter any arguments of Blitz GG against Ben. So if you have seen Omniverse, you know that the second Omnitrix possesses a failsafe that automatically activates when the user's life is in danger, giving them the best alien for the given situation. Now this has reacted to the Big Bang itself in the series, but as mentioned, Duncan Rouleau, one of the creators of the series, went into further detail with how fast the processing power of the Omnitrix is. According to him, Grandpa Max's old partner Phil clocked the transformation sequence of the Omnitrix at 100 Google Yottabytes per 0.0000000000001 cubed seconds, even noting this as only being the fastest that Galvan equipment could measure it, and that it could be even faster. He also notes that it's faster than a theoretical tachyon, and we have actually seen tachyons in the series. Going through hyperspace in Ben 10 turns you into tachyons, and the hybrid used this to move from the edge of the Milky Way to Earth in a fraction of a second, and this would be approximately 29 trillion times faster than light. But going back to the calculation that Phil made, this calculation brings the transformation sequence of the Omnitrix at this many bytes per second, and to put that in English, this would be more than the informational content of the entire universe. This means that Ben can transform in this many seconds. For reference, it takes light this many seconds to travel a meter, and doing the math brings the process to 312.6002 trequadragontillion times the speed of light. And if we did assume the fastest computer the Galvans have is light speed, we can get it even higher, being 46 quadragontillion times the speed of light. This is how fast the Omnitrix can react with its failsafe to transform Ben, and again, once this transformation process begins, it is instant. So it's fair to say that most characters aren't blitzing Ben, but how fast are his aliens by themselves? Now before I start this section, I'd like to state that I'm not going to be considering energy bolts from firearms as lasers that move at the speed of light. Most of the times these seem like clear substitutes for bullets in a cartoon made for younger audiences. That being said, most would probably reference accelerate or fast track for speed, aliens that can outrun lightning and explosions respectively. However, despite these two being portrayed as speedsters of the Omnitrix, they aren't even in the top echelon if we go by feats and statements. For example, we have aliens that have straight up interstellar travel feats, namely Jetray, who is able to enter hyperspace and turn into faster than light tachyons, and as we already calculated, tachyons in Ben 10 can move at 29 trillion times faster than light, and we can definitely apply this to Jetray's movement speed. Then there's Chromastone, who flew to Petropia from Earth in a few minutes at most. Now it's unknown how far this was, but it's at least in another solar system, so while this flight isn't as impressive as Jetray's, it's still certainly faster than light. Now Chromastone's DNA sample Sugilite did have the Petropia backup crystal absorbed. This being the case, the argument could be made that he was amped, so you can take this feat as you will. And staying on movement speed, Waybig was able to run fast enough to produce a tornado that sent a trash monster twice the size of Texas into the sun in seconds. Now it seems like seconds, but we don't actually see him hit the sun, so we don't know how long it took him to get there, but it's definitely fast. And there's also other feats for Waybig, like reacting to the Incursion Conquest Ray, which is able to destroy planets across a solar system. He's also avoided his own Cosmic Ray, which has its own impressive speed feats, some of questionable canonicity. And we did mention Incursion Spacecrafts, which also relates to the next feat involving Big Chill. He was able to keep pace with another interstellar incursion ship, dodging its cannon fire, which was moving fast enough that it disappeared into outer space with no visible light in under a second. It's a bit vague, but I thought I'd mention it here. And to finish up this subsection of speed going over travel and movement speed, in the Omniverse series Master Brief, Feedback Species was stated to be able to easily traverse their home Teslavor Nebula using voltage. This is relevant due to the nebula itself being 60 light years in diameter. Now the term easily traverse is a bit vague, but it's definitely faster than light considering context. And this is further backed up by Ben transforming into Feedback and reacting to Malware's Tachyon Blaster after it was fired. And we've already referenced tachyons being 29 trillion times faster than light in the Ben 10 universe. Now that last feat could be slightly tenuous considering they could simply be a different type of tachyons, though this is never implied to be the case. And you could also debunk this using statements from Kevin saying that nobody can move faster than light in Earth's atmosphere, but this happened on Galvan Prime, and we don't know the atmosphere of that planet. And vague feats aside, there are characters who also have feats against these tachyons, namely Humongosaur. This also happened in the atmosphere of Galvan Prime, and it's the only speed feat that he has on this level, so I definitely wouldn't blame you for questioning its consistency. But the likes of Vampire has reacted to these tachyons outside of an atmosphere. Everyone's favorite weirdly strong Dracula was able to do this against Malgax, giving him definitive faster than light reaction speed, once again scaling to 29 trillion times faster than light based on the Hybrid Jump Gate. There's also Gravitack and his showings against the Time Beast. This beast was outright stated to be faster than light by Rook, yet Gravitack had no issues catching him with his powers. And we will definitely revisit this feat in a later section, but it does give Gravitack faster than light reaction speed. Even guys like Energy and Heat Blast have pretty unexpected speed feats, Energy being able to react to and dodge pieces of a moon that fell to a planet in seconds, while Heat Blast was able to move faster than Eyesight to the Megawatts, who are pure electricity. And for what it's worth, Accelerate was able to move so fast that the world around him appeared frozen. And this is even from the perspective of robots that can throw baseballs at hypersonic speeds. And Ben 10,000 is also able to use Accelerate to patrol the entire planet. There's also villains of the series like Vilgax and Dr. Victor that consistently react to Accelerate, characters that Ben has fought on numerous occasions with numerous aliens. We even see the weakest possible version of Vilgax tag Accelerate, so there's a good portion of Ben's aliens that could be scaled to be pretty fast. And to round out the speed section, Ultimate Kevin and Agrigor can act as their own form of interstellar transportation. In fact, Agrigor was able to fly to a different galaxy in minutes. Basically, Ben and Azimuth had a short conversation before Azimuth teleported the Rust Bucket 3 to said galaxy, and Agrigor was already right behind them. Now the speed of this feat is pretty vague, but it's at least on par with, if not outright superior to the previously outlined Tachyon feats. Kevin also later flies to a plumber academy in a different solar system in a fairly short amount of time, so both of these guys are faster than light for sure, meaning any aliens that fight on par with them are probably also at this speed. But this is movement speed, so it doesn't scale to too many aliens. Regardless, Ben is surprisingly fast, but his physical strength and durability feats are a little more obvious. Since we just mentioned Ultimate Kevin, we can start with a line of scaling involving him. So Sir George, the King of the Forever Knights, and later Ben wielded the Ascalon Sword, a weapon that was shown to be able to destroy the Incursion home planet when the wielder lost control of its power. George later fights against Ultimate Humongosaur, who was able to completely no-sell a slash from George. Now I definitely have seen some say that this wasn't comparable to the Planet Plus showing due to a lack of destruction. However, a true wielder of the Ascalon is able to harness its power completely, and these same slashes damage the Dagon, a multi-dimensional godlike being. Not to mention that Ben had universal scale reality manipulation while wielding the Ascalon. This to me feels plainly planet level in terms of attack potency, meaning that it is a focused slash with planet level output. Where this wraps back around to Ultimate Kevin is where we see him overpower Ultimate Humongousaur in a close quarters brawl, and not only did he tank everything Ultimate Humongousaur has, but he easily and hopelessly defeats him. This establishes Kevin as a firmly Planet Plus level character, who can take down guys that shrug off Planet Plus level output. And this makes it all the more impressive when Ultimate Echo treats Kevin like dollar store fodder and sweeps him with sonic discs. Not to mention that Ultimate Humongousaur was also able to easily take out Diamond Head with his missiles. This is especially impressive due to Diamond Head's feats against Malware, which we see in the Omniverse flashbacks. Here they battle on Galvin B, a fight in which Maltruant had absorbed enough energy to destroy the moon itself. A moon referenced as being the size of the largest moon in our solar system, which is actually the size of a small planet. So even despite a small planet level amp, Diamond Head was able to brawl evenly with him, tank his hits, and eventually defeat and contain Malware. This is easily large moon level and showcases more impressive scaling for Ultimate Humongousaur, and in turn Ultimate Kevin and Ultimate Echo. And this puts Ultimate Echo on the top of a scaling ladder where the literal bottom rung is large moon level. But apparently Ultimate Humongousaur is here just giving out Planet Plus level scaling. Because without even amping himself with absorption, Feedback was able to tase Ultimate Humongousaur into submission, meaning that base Feedback without even absorbing energy is Planet Plus level at least. And getting in on this Planet Plus level giveaway as well is Atomics, whose interaction with Ultimate Humongousaur is honestly even more impressive than Feedback's. A single clash between the two sent Ultimate Humongousaur reeling, with Atomics essentially one-shotting an alien that's able to no-sell Planet Plus level output. And if you guys have seen our alien ranking video, you know how I feel about Vampire, but he inexplicably squeezes his way into the scale as well, doing so against Malgax. This fever dream of a character is a combination between Malware and Vilgax, who was able to lay the smackdown on both Diamond Head and Atomics. And if you've been paying any attention, Vampire in turn brawling with Malgax should put him in a similar planet-ish level to these two, at the very least. Waybig also has some pretty decent feats against Malware, though they're hard to quantify in terms of output given Malware's regeneration. Waybig is also going to be one of the only aliens that we've gone over with objective planet-busting feats. Though it's not really canon to this timeline, he did destroy a planet in cosmic destruction, but something that is very much canon is him overpowering the Incursion Conquest Ray, which is directly shown and stated to destroy planets. And to wrap up this section going over more traditional strength, output, and durability, we have Ultimate Hype Tool. Bro literally appears exactly one time in all 4 series, but he was still around long enough to harm the Dagon. The Dagon, as I mentioned, being a multidimensional being that tanked the planet-busting Ascalon far better than he did the Cosmic Ray. But the Dagon is still multidimensional and enslaved 100 dimensions, so this is a feat that's still vaguely impressive and way above planet level. There's also once again out-of-universe statements that Ultimate Waybig can tank the explosion of Element X, a compound stated in the series as being able to annihilate solar systems. But this statement is a little bit more extreme than just fleshing out the size of a planet or the speed of the failsafe we've seen on screen, so it's up to you how seriously you want to take that statement. And so our last section will be going over more hacks-based abilities rather than those of raw output. Now raw output will still be included in some of these feats, but I still feel that it was different enough to warrant its own section. We'll start out with a weird one, being Goop's resilience and the gravity control of his adorable little UFO. When Agrigor stole the gravitational multiplier keeping Ripjaw's planet together, it was in turn replaced by Goop's own gravity projector. Not only did this reconstitute the planet, but it also spread Goop's form across it, essentially atomizing him. Despite this, Ben survived it all. So this is hard to quantify, but it still shows that Ben can survive having his aliens spread across a planetary scale. Then there's also aliens like Heat Blast and Big Chill, both having direct feeds indicating the peak of their powers reaching the heat of supernova and the cold of absolute zero respectively. So despite not being among the strongest aliens in the Omnitrix, characters without resistance to extreme temperatures would for sure be in trouble when facing these two. And slightly adjacent to temperature is Energy, a character with energy manipulation and nuclear projection, making him one of the casually most dangerous aliens in the Omnitrix. Probably his greatest feat comes from easily consuming energy sources, such as the Kraho's nuclear fusion core, which had the power to drill into the earth and extract lava in seconds. His DNA source Pandor also consumed multiple cores from a nuclear fission reactor, and this kind of energy should have put Pandor above any nuclear weapons at the time. Just to put an easy number to it, the weapon Tsar Bomba did damage up to nearly 600 miles and vaporized everything within a 30-mile radius. And this was just a nuclear fission reactor. According to nuclearworld.org, fusion reactions should be 4 times stronger than fission, so he was even further above that level after consuming the Kraho fusion core in Omniverse. But this level of consumption is nothing compared to Upchuck. The Gorman species shares a pocket dimension of unknown size for a stomach, This allows them to consume an entire planet as a species in a short time, but even by himself, Upchuck was able to consume and absorb the sub-energy, an energy core that could have wiped out an entire continent, and was directly stated by Grandpa Max to be 20 times more powerful than our sun. There's also a similar containment accomplished by Ultimate Echo Echo, where a nuclear fusion grenade went off and was stopped by his sonic discs, causing an explosion that dwarfed planets in the background. Not to mention that Base and Ultimate Echo Echo have frequency control that can atomize targets, which should allow them to ignore standard durability to a certain extent. And it gets a little more cosmic with Gravitack, who has pretty absurd implied abilities with absolute control over a fundamental force of the universe. For example, he's stated to be able to vaporize an entire space station along with their inhabitants, some of which are Apoplexians. But even crazier was the interaction that he had with the aforementioned faster-than-light Time Beast, creating a black hole when he interacted with the physiology of the Time Beast. Now, depending on how big the black hole would have gotten, this could be multi-solar system level. There's also out-of-universe statements indicating that Gravitack could do this on his own with practice, and even create quasars. But ultimately this is a bit speculative considering we never directly saw this on screen. Something we did see on screen was Atomics and his ability to create stars. And there's similarly additional statements saying that he should be able to make large stars with more time. And speaking of stars, Chromostone's DNA sample Sugilite was able to absorb the energy of 3 stars. These were of an unknown size, but he did use the power to reform Petropia, a planet stated to be far larger than Earth. There's also additional outside-of-universe statements saying that he could absorb large stars like Rigel, which is 21 times more massive than our Sun. But regardless, we do have clear star-level energy manipulation. But after this is where Ben's aliens go nuts. We've seen some star and even solar system level feats and statements so far, but getting into the likes of Feedback, who can absorb pretty much any type of energy as long as it adheres to the physics of the universe he's in at the time, and the peak of this is shown in the climax of Omniverse. Feedback is able to absorb, contain, and redirect the explosion of the Annihilarg. This was an explosion that caused the Big Bang which created the Prime Timeline, at least a universal level feat of energy manipulation. Could be higher considering that Azimuth states that even Ben's universe has 17 dimensions in it, and considering Feedback's absorbed energy is shown to amp his physical stats, my guy would be a major problem for any character that uses energy in combat. But believe it or not, it gets even crazier. We're about to talk about Clockwork. Really, we're going to talk about 2 feats mainly. First is a feat shared by Young Ben and Teen Ben. Now Eon, a powerful time manipulator in his own right, was able to acquire the Chrono Navigator from Professor Paradox, an item that allows the user to travel the infinite omniverse, along with also apparently gaining Paradox's own abilities. With this, Eon was unraveling the space-time of the infinite omniverse, and was about to destroy it. Now this is a macrocosm with infinite timelines, which themselves contain infinite universes within them individually, and as I mentioned, these individual universes are also stated to contain at least 17 dimensions according to Azimuth. This on top of multiversal dimensions like the Null Void and Ledger Domain, which connect to every individual universe in every timeline. So this was Eon destroying a complex omniverse by manipulating its space-time directly. Now where this becomes relevant again is when the duo of Bens used Clockwork to anchor Eon to his original timeline, basically countering his space-time manipulation to the point of stopping his attempt to destroy the Omniverse. Now some of you might say that this team effort implies that Clockwork couldn't do something like this himself, but he does straight up do something on this level. In this situation, Vilgax uses a Chronosapien time bomb to destroy every timeline in the Omniverse, besides one timeline where Ben does not have the Omnitrix. Now this version of Ben, who a lot of people call No Watch Ben, went through a bunch of shenanigans in order to become Watch Ben. And as soon as he got an Omnitrix, he used Clockwork to reverse the effects of the Chronosapien time bomb. So our boy basically reversed the destruction of an Omniverse casually with no experience using that alien. These 2 feats plain and simple showcase that Clockwork has complex multiversal scale time manipulation, not really much else to say about that. But that brings us to the finale, the alien that's going to inevitably come up in any Ben conversation. Alien X is undeniably the most powerful alien in the Omnitrix, stated as so several times in the series. I've seen a lot of people point to the infamous statement by the GOAT Dwayne McDuffie, where he says that there are aliens stronger than Alien X. But not only is this unsupported and straight up contradicted by the series, but as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Dwayne himself considers this statement non-canon. That being said, every feat so far, Alien X scales above it, from planet level to star level to solar system level to universe level to multiverse level. Now we obviously have the famous feat of Alien X no-selling the aforementioned Annihilarg, and recreating the universe that it destroyed, which is once again composed of 17 dimensions. On top of this, the damage caused by the Annihilarg reached into Alien X's mind, which should exist outside of space-time, so take that as you will. There's also out-of-universe statements that Alien X can wipe out the Omniverse with a few thoughts, Now, as I've mentioned before, this statement by itself would be dubious, if not for scaling in statements that put Alien X above both the Chronosapien Time Bomb and the Chrono Navigator, which, as I stated, are capable of wiping out the Omniverse in their own right. So Alien X is an easy, complex multiversal pick, who should have massively faster than light speed based on his fight with the Galactic Gladiator and scaling above every single other alien. The idea is also brought up that Alien X is responsible for the art style changes from original series to Alien Force and Ultimate Alien to Omniverse, which I have seen be used as a basis for scaling Alien X as a character that can affect the real world, but this evidence is presented as part of an argument from what is essentially the equivalent of an intergalactic Saul Goodman, and it's pretty much just a gag that I really don't put much stock into in terms of scaling. Not to mention that fourth wall breaks like this, and dimensional tiering in general, are an extremely overblown aspect of scaling, which is a viewpoint that I can express in a later video if you'd like, so comment if you want that. There's also statements saying that Alien X is omnipotent, and Azimuth says he can literally do anything. But like I said, even being conservative, Alien X should be complex multiversal level, in a multiverse where a single universe has at least 17 dimensions, and the Cosmic Mother who is in possession of the Nalgian Destructor does state that there's 26 dimensions. Plus, individual timelines contain infinite numbers of these universes, with the Omniverse containing infinite timelines in turn, on top of dimensions like the Null Void connecting to every individual universe in the Omniverse. Also, by the end of the series, it is directly shown that Ben does have control of Alien X, so using that argument to downplay this level of power doesn't really work. So I hope you guys have learned something about Ben Tennyson today and how underrated some of his top tier aliens are, and this really isn't even the full extent of what the Omnitrix is capable of, just the highest quantifiable showings that I've gathered from the tippity top tier aliens. And if there were aliens that you hope to see that weren't covered in this video, go check out our TikTok where we've done short form How Strong videos for pretty much every single alien, along with every other notable side character. We'll also be uploading YouTube shorts on this channel as well. And while you're there, give us a follow on TikTok, join our Discord for Versus Battle Mayhem, and obviously sub here and give us a like or else. Also forget everything I said, Garo, Negs, Alien X.